Hi, everyone. Joette Calabrese here. And we're going to be talking about something a little different tonight because I'll be talking about how we can go to the drugstore and survive it. So that we can get out of the drugstore without buying drugs. So as you may know, if you've been following it all, my husband and I have moved to Florida. And oh, hi, Jackie. Hi. Oh, I see a couple people that I know. Perry's joined. Hi. Hi, Shannon. And we've just moved. And so I'm stocking my medicine cabinet or my linen closet. And it's a lot of glare in my glasses. I'll take these off for a minute. And so I had kind of stocked before, but I thought I'd really better get everything that I truly need. So I just came back from a party. I've got my party dress on. It's my new dress with my wonderful little bell sleeves. And a little more. But this morning I went to the drugstore. And what I like about drugstores is that they have stuff other than drugs. I'm going to brag here for a moment. I've not taken a drug in, 35 years, but I did have an emergency surgery several years ago. I think it was about 26 years ago. And so I did have general anesthesia for that. And then I also had a tooth extracted and I had a local anesthetic for that. But other than that, excuse me, I've not had any need for drugs because I've replaced drugs with something better, and that, of course, is homeopathy. But there's also an aspect to this that's not homeopathic, and I wanted to bring that to your attention because we can use just common sense and everyday products, not just for health reasons, but I like to use the stuff that they have in drugstores for other uses as well. So I thought I'd show you a couple of things that I picked up today, and it might just inspire you to consider getting these kinds of things yourself instead of buying drugs. I don't tell people to never take drugs. I tell folks that if they're already on a medication for a chronic condition, that the goal of homeopathy is to correct the condition while they're still on their medication and make the medication become superfluous. So after a while, there's no reason to take it. And so a person goes back to their doctor and says, I don't think I have this any longer. Maybe we could back off of this and titrate. So I don't urge people to get off of drugs. It would be wrong of me to do that. But it would be right of me to help you stay away from them in the first place. So these are some things that I got at the drugstore. I bought hydrogen peroxide. This is what my husband and I use to brush our teeth. We use just a tiny bit of it, and baking soda. I didn't bring the baking soda because I got that from the grocery store. But I mix this pour it on my toothbrush and then use it with a little baking soda and brush my teeth with it. This is my favorite soap, which is Kirk's fragrance-free soap, which I love. Other than the soap that Courtney, who's part of my team, makes for me every year. But when I run out of that, this is the soap I use. And I actually use this as a shampoo as well. I always use this. I never use this alone. I shampoo with it, and then I rinse my hair. Always rinse my hair with raw vinegar, and then it gets the film of the soap off. I bought some rubbing alcohol, which I don't use very often for health reasons. I don't think it's very good to be using this, but I do use it to clean my screen on my laptop. So we got to have some of that. Mineral oil is often used as for constipation. As a last resort, if homeopathy didn't work or somebody didn't have homeopathy, although I think that we can always pretty much get rid of constipation with homeopathic medicines, I use mineral oil to polish my furniture. And I use it I have a countertop that is slate. Oh no, I have floors in my bathroom that are slate and a countertop that is soapstone. And I use food grade mineral oil. I never buy it at a hardware store because then it has drying agents and it has some synthetic chemicals and all, and you can smell it, and I wouldn't want that near my food. But I do use the mineral oil that's supposed to be used for constipation that I get at the store. Of course, I buy bandages. I mean, everyone needs bandages, so I got some of those. And so that's a good thing to have. And then I got my Epsom salts. Now, in moving to Florida, I don't plan on taking an awful lot of baths. It's not something I enjoy in the warm weather. But up north, when I do go north, I love taking a hot bath in Epsom salts. It's very good for cramping legs and for calming. It's also good for after you've had x-rays to soak in it and then release the water and then fill up the tub again and put more Epsom salts in after it's gotten cool, and it can help. It has been reported, and I can't say for sure that this is exactly what happens, but if you're having an x-ray, why not give that a try and see if that, you never know what it's going to do or not do. And I'm always willing to use something that is not, that is super inexpensive and not toxic, doesn't have side effects to deal with any condition. So that's what I found at the drugstore. Now I went to Publix, I'm in Florida. Then I went to the health food store, and now I get what I really want. I got some oscillococcinum. I actually took it out of the package. This is one of the little bottles, and this is made by Bourne, which is really great right now for these flus that are going around. And I've said before that I personally have not found great relief from oscillococcinum. I don't know why that is. My sons get relief from it. My husband gets relief from it. And many of my clients and students swear by it. So you always want to have this on hand. So I put that, and I'll show you what I put this in. Now, this is in Florida, and this is my new method. And I bought this tray. It's supposed to be for cosmetics, and I bought, not a tray, I have a lot of these trays. And I got them on Amazon, and there you can hear the remedies rattling in there. And these are some that I've gotten from India that I brought home with me. So they're in alcohol in little black glass vials. And then there are a lot of borons, and I also have OHM pharmacy in here. And I label the tops of them so that I can read from the top, of course, and put them in alphabetical order. This particular tray has a couple of I's and N's in there. So I would be influenzinum, which I do find can be useful sometimes. Ignatia, which is very valuable for what just happened, not more than 20 minutes away from my home, and that horrible massacre in Florida at the school. And so a lot of people could use Ignatia 200. If you don't know how to use it, go to the blog and read up on Ignatia. But tonight I'm going to talk about Nux vomica. Now, you can never have too much Nux vomica. I have Nux vomica in my kits. I have it in my 200 kit, so it's Nux vomica 200. I have it in my 30th potency kit, and that is, I like to have that on hand, and that's what I travel with, and it's what I use when I'm about to run out. However, I have to say that you can never have too much Nux vomica. When you travel, my husband and I are about to go on a vacation outside of the country. Actually, it's just a long weekend, but we're actually planning the first vacation we've had in probably close to 3 decades. We travel, but we travel for work. So this is going to be an actual 3.5 day reprieve for us. So I will, of course, have my kit with me, but just in case we use too much of it, if one of us gets sick from foods that we're not accustomed to, or from traveling too long. This is going to be a short trip for us, but let's say it was a long travel. Nux vomica is great for traveling. It's wonderful for eating the wrong foods that you're not accustomed to eating. It's also good for the flu, and when someone comes down with chills, and they're very icy cold, and they also happen to have gastrointestinal conditions such as nausea or even a little vomiting. Not when it's relentless vomiting, then we go more towards veratrum album and arsenicum, but when it's a little bit of that, then we might use Nux vomica, constipation or diarrhea, etc. We're always looking for something that can abort the condition as quickly as possible. And if you feel it coming on anything which you have chills and gastrointestinal and you've overdone it, you've overeaten, or you've not slept, you've stayed up too long, too much reveille, too much travel, not enough sleep, Nux vomica is your medicine. So I wanted to make you aware of how important that is. Excuse me, Perry, do you have any questions there that you want me? I can look at these questions here. Well, what to use for constipation when the stool is soft? That's the first question, and it's a good question. I'm not going to answer all the specifics, but it just so happens that Nux vomica is often used for that. So it's constipation when the stool is soft is often Nux vomica. And I would use, this is the one that I'm holding here is Nux vomica 30, and I actually like 30 for constipation that's too soft, or constipation that's alternating with diarrhea. Diarrhea meaning in this particular case frequency and urgency.
Second.
Okay, can you do a Facebook Live on cell salts? Well, interestingly, we have a, I will probably be doing that, and thanks for suggesting it. We just put up a blog on cell salts, and I will be talking more about them. But I do want you folks to remember that cell salts, even though they are a subcategory, a category of homeopathy that is super easy to learn, I do want you to think in terms of the fact that they're still homeopathic medicines. A good question came in on my blog, I think it was today or last night, that asked, can you prove a cell salt? Well, the question is, can you prove a homeopathic medicine? Because that's exactly what cell salts are homeopathic medicines. I'm going to put this back in the end section of my little tray here, and I'm going to put my oscillococcinum over here near the O's. So, yes, indeed, you can prove a cell salt. You use it only as needed. So can you put up a link for the cases from the Amazon? I don't know. I suppose we could do that.
I looked. I didn't quickly
Oh,
find it.
my husband's looking for it. You have to just look at my You're going to have to look under my account because I bought a lot of these cases. So my husband's looking right now and see if he can find it. When you say in your blog to use Nux vomica for someone who wakes up every night at around 2 to 3 a.m., would you have them take Nux when they wake up, or to have them take it before bed to try to prevent the waking? It depends. If you're talking about every night, this is a chronic condition. And when there's a chronic condition, I would use it every night. I would use it perhaps even in the morning too, morning and night. If there are other conditions that I can justify the use for it, such as constipation, and if soft stool and constipation, et cetera, et cetera. If it's only for waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning and not being able to get back to sleep, then, and it's still every night, I would still use it daily, and I would use it just before bed. If, on the other hand, it's only occasional, then I might put Nux vomica by the bedside and take it then when you wake up. But if you know that it's going to happen, why not just nip it in the bud and get it taken care of sooner rather than later? Is there no danger about proving with Nux vomica? Danger. Depends on what you mean by danger. If you're talking about danger that can come from drugs, conventional drugs, I would call that danger. Those are true side effects, and they often don't go away even though you've stopped taking the drug. Did you hear what I said? A lot of drugs, when you take them, do not disappear, even though you've stopped taking the drug. The body takes a long time to deal with that compensation that it's made, that adjustment, that forcing symptoms to stop by having used conventional medicines. In homeopathy, if you cause a proving, you would know because you're feeling worse, and you should just stop. And you can use camphor or camphora in Latin, 200, 1 dose 1 day. And I've talked about that before in my blog, so be sure to check that out. So is there danger? In all the years that I've been working in homeopathy, I have never seen irrevocable danger. I've never seen someone who doesn't come out of it pretty quickly after approving a homeopathic medicine. I really don't give it an awful lot of thought. I've given myself provings from time to time, and my family members, etc. And my clients have reported, students have reported, and we simply use the camphora, or you can use essential oil of mint, and I talked about that in one of these podcasts a while ago. So I'm not going to say that homeopathy is perfectly safe, but I will call it relatively safe. Even the FDA says that it's safe. So it depends on what you mean by danger. So let's see if we have any other questions. What can I use for? I'm not going to go into a specific case, so I'm not going to talk about a specific child or someone. Just once a day of Nux vomica for constipation. Well, if constipation is pretty severe, then and you can pretty much count on it, I would use it twice daily. I would use twice daily and keep going until it is corrected. If it's corrected, you see that it's changed, that the constipation has melted away, then we stop the medicine. It makes perfect sense. You stop the medicine. But if it comes back, what do? You resume it. It just means you haven't finished using it. So we want to use the medicines until they're no longer needed. Once they're no longer needed, we stop, we watch, we wait, we look for that tipping point where we can see that there's an actual improvement, but it comes back again, maybe a day, or it's not a day, but let's say 4 or 5 days later, or 2 weeks, 2 months, a year, whatever it might be, you're going to watch when it returns. When it returns, you resume the use of the homeopathic. Now, this is a different way of looking at it, at illness. Consider it an opportunity. Symptoms are not disease. They are an example or a representation of a disease or of a condition. And we like symptoms. I realize that when you're having them, you're suffering. And if they're very severe, of course, we don't want you to suffer horribly. But what we like about symptoms is that they don't lie, and they are real. The only time a symptom would lie would be if it's actually a side effect of a drug. So when we get a symptom, it gives us an opportunity to use a homeopathic medicine that does, and here is the key, homeopathic medicine's goals are to correct the condition, not suppress it, not smash it down, not drive it to a deeper state, but to correct the condition. And so if you have a symptom that you can use that will help you uproot a condition, that condition and other satellite conditions that may be associated with it, what a great opportunity. So if the condition returns after using the homeopathic, instead of saying, oh no, it's back again, no, say, hallelujah, it's time to use the medicine that is indeed intended to correct the condition. That's a completely different way of looking at sufferings, isn't it? Instead of saying, I'm marching towards more severe illness, instead you're using what is presenting as a method for correction. Correction, not stuffing it down. Because with conventional meds, often the goal is to suppress symptoms. It's like you're pressing down on a water balloon. It's going to bulge up somewhere else, and then you got to press there, and then it bulges up somewhere else. Something has to give when we use synthetic, industry, commercially made medicines. And the body was never intended to do that. The body was truly intended, is truly intended to correct and to try to correct when given the proper stimulus, whether the proper stimulus is good food, whether the proper stimulus is regulation of sleep, whether the proper stimulus is Nux vomica, a homeopathic medicine, whether the proper stimulus is getting in sunshine. Those are stimuli that are important for the body to correct itself. And if it can't correct itself with those others, good food, good sleep, good lifestyle choices, Very important. Your lifestyle choices are very, very important. So that's when I'm going to go off on a tiny tangent here. When I speak to young people, I tell them, choose your mate well, because that's your first step towards your team. Then when you have your children, make sure that you're very well yourself and that you're moving towards wellness and you understand how to use homeopathy even before you have your children, if possible. And you learn what is the best way to raise a child. So you want to create your team so that as you go through young adulthood and middle age and aging adulthood and old age, that you've got a team in place and that you are their team player and helping them, and you're their coach early on, and then they become yours as you begin to age. So it's important that you make your decisions well, and if you need to do research to do so, then by all means do research. And be wary of largeness, large government, large industry. Just be wary of that. It's not 100%, but be cautious and question a lot of what we've always not questioned. I think it's important to do that in life today. So, all right, let's see if we have any other questions here that I can answer. Is it a good idea to take bioplasma daily as a preventative? I used to think that way, to be honest, but I have so many better methods now that are shortcuts to treating conditions that, no, I don't do that anymore. So if you're looking at an old blog of mine, I don't remove my blogs. And I've mentioned this before. Even though I've changed my thinking, I don't remove the old ones. I want you to see how I've grown. I want you to see how things have changed for me, because then it can perhaps help you relate to how you've changed in your thinking. The evolution of thought is very important. So I used to believe that bioplasma was a good idea to use as a preventative, but now I believe it's more important that you simply use good food, sunshine, without sunscreen, say your prayers, go to church, go to temple, choose your mate properly, raise your children holistically. If you're raising children, if you possibly can, homeschool them. If you can't, then you do what you can. And I'm not saying you must do all of these things, but do the best you can. And here's some more questions. Okay, if I'm using Nux vomica with 200 with chelidonium for blood sugar, will Nux also work for constipation, or do I have to take it by itself? I actually like Nux vomica for constipation more often, not always, it depends on the case, but more often in a 30. Now, you would think that the same remedy in a different potency still gives the same results, but it often doesn't. So if constipation is severe, you might want to go with Nux vomica 30, and in addition to the Nux vomica chelidonium, but only after you've given the Nux vomica 200 a chance, because sometimes it does act very well for constipation as well. So it's a good question. And I used to think that you could overlap, and often you can, but sometimes you really can't. Sometimes you really need the exact potency to make it proper. And that's what I love about the method that I teach with the Banerjees, is that it is very specific. Listen, folks, there are 5, and let's see if I've got my rules here. I'm going to remember them off the top of my head anyway. There are 5 steps that you must take in order to choose a homeopathic medicine. So, and this is especially for classical. So let me start with that. First, we must identify the condition. We have to know, is this lump on the breast a calcium deposit? Is it a tumor? Is it a lymph node? Is it, we need to know what it is we're working with. That's just one example. But you want to know what it is you're working with. What is the name of the condition? A conventional diagnosis. What is the name of the condition? Number 1. Number 2, once you know the name of the condition, you want to know which homeopathic medicine to use for that condition. Number 3, you need to know the potency of the homeopathic medicine. Is it a 6 potency? Is it a 12? Is it a 30? Is it a 200? Is it a 1M? Then you need to know the frequency. How frequently do we use this medicine for this particular condition with this potency? Number 5, did I go to 4? I think I did. 5 is you must be certain as to when to stop. Generally speaking, for chronic conditions, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to know when to stop, to make the assessment. And then you assess and decide whether or not you stop or you continue. So those are the 5 steps. With the method that I teach, the Banerjee protocols and other protocols, you need to, I'll go through it again, identify the condition. Number 2, knowing the condition, you already know the medicine. It's a given. We give that. I give you that information on my blog. I give it in my courses. I teach it in my study groups, and the Banerjees have it in their book. It is identified. What is also identified, not just the name of the remedy, but the potency. It's a 200 or it's a 30 or it's a 6. And not only is that given, but we also give the frequency. See how easy it becomes once you have protocols, and then you assess and determine when to stop. That's how you come to, I'm better, I'm not better, because that assessment too is very important, particularly when you note that, am I better? And the only way to know this is by writing it all down in the beginning and assigning a numerical value to the sufferings that you're experiencing. So if the constipation is a whopping 8 out of 10, you want to note that. Does it mean that you're not having bowel movements for 5 days in a row? You want to note that. Those numbers are important, so that in 2 months you can then adjust your thinking and know, yes, indeed, that Nux Vomica 30 did act. Or if it was more plumbum and lycopodium and plumbum, that indeed did act. Now you can move on. If it's finished, then you stop. If it's not finished, you continue until it is finished. So I hope that makes it clear for you. Let's see if we have any others. Perry, do we have any other questions here? I have found that bioplasma does not help me. Why? Because that means you don't need it. Good question. Glad you asked that. Yeah, you just don't need it. So why take it? Or there is perhaps one of the cell salts. There are 12 cell salts in bioplasma. That one of the 12 salts might be needed, or 2 of them or 3 of them might be needed, but the other 9 are not needed. So that's what it means. So let's see what else we've got here. Okay, camphor corrects homeopathy. So I can't read, it's too far away, I'm sorry. Let's see what we've got here. Camphor corrects homeopathy. So does Nux Vomica, but correct allopathic drugs and 1 dose once a day for 3 days. Camphor, oh, I see what you, well, it's 1 dose 1 day. That's it, 1 dose 1 day. And generally speaking, camphor 200 or camphora 200, 1 dose 1 day, can help subdue and help correct, at least on some level, the conditions that may have arisen as a result of allopathic drugs or poorly chosen homeopathic medicines. Now, am I going to tell you that it's going to absolutely wipe everything out? No, I'm not going to tell you that that's necessarily, but it's a very good place to start. So let me give you an example, and then we'll finish with this example. Let's say someone has surgery, and they've been given general anesthesia, and they are coming out of the general anesthesia, and they're having a difficult time with it. They feel fuzzy-headed, nauseous, and spacey. And we wait for them to clear out of it, because it does take time to come out of a general anesthesia. But if you can see that they're not clearing out of it, or you have an opportunity to give them the homeopathic soon after, then you give them camphora 200. But you don't stop there. You're making the assumption that indeed it was from the general anesthesia. But you might also want to give, if they're nauseous, Nux Vomica, because that helps with the nausea, or Arsenicum album. And the fuzzy-headedness and the spaciness, you might want to also give phosphorus 200 to help get rid of that. And what that's going to do is camphora is going to help bring down the problem with the drug itself. Meanwhile, Nux vomica is going to treat the aspects of it that you can see in actual symptoms, such as the nausea or even headaches from it. And phosphorus is going to help with the vagueness of thinking and inability to form a sentence properly, or feeling as though someone's in a dreamlike state. So once you know what's going on, you can use all three of those, Camphora, one dose one day, and then go right on to Nux vomica and the phosphorus. And as you see that the phosphorus is acting, then you can back off of that. The Nux vomica is still needed. There's nausea as long as the person takes, let's say they're taking Nux vomica every 6 hours. And just around the 5th hour, they start feeling it again. Okay, then you know that you're on track with about every 5 to 6 hours you need to give Nux vomica. So I hope that helps you. That's the whole idea here. This is a movement, folks. I want you to learn as much as you can for free through these podcasts, through these Facebook, my podcast, through Facebook Live, from my blog. Use what I've given you for free and share it with others. We need to get this going, this homeopathic movement. We need to keep homeopathy safe in our country, and by safe I mean protected from big business and industry, which is often a threat to our precious homeopathy. If you want to learn more, then we have study groups, and we're about to announce that we're going to be putting together Gateway 2, which is a follow-up to Gateway 1, which is our study groups, and we've had such great results from those study groups. I couldn't tell you how happy I am with those groups. So in order to take Gateway 2, you have to take Gateway 1, or you'll be somewhat in the dark. Even though you may know a good deal about homeopathy, I urge you to do that anyway, because I do teach some things in Gateway 1 that you may have missed, or I've look at from a different point of view. So we're about to launch that in a couple of weeks, hopefully. We always say that, and then we end up it being a little bit longer than that. But I'll do my best to get that going as fast as we can. We have another course coming up, and then we're about to launch relaunch our course on
alternatives to antibiotics.
Alternatives to antibiotics. So should you be interested in that as well? If you can't afford those courses, no problem. Do as I just said. Just watch these. Just stay on the blog. It's free. And go online. It's not just me. There are many other homeopaths out there teaching homeopathy. Get yourself, you want to purchase my Materia Medica, great. But if you can't even afford that, by all means, no problem. Key in Kent's Materia Medica and learn how to read there are many Materia Medicas out there. Read them all. The more time you have and that you put into this, the faster you'll learn, and the more freedom you will have from the drugstore and buying products that only cause trouble rather than correct problems. So, good night all. God bless you all, and have a great evening. Bye now.